verse 16, 2 Samuel chapter 12. David begged God to spare the child. He went without food. He fasted. He lay all night on the bare ground. The elders of his household pleaded with him to get up and eat with them, but he refused. Verse 18, and then on the seventh day, the child died. David's advisors were afraid to tell him. He wouldn't listen to reason while the child was ill, they said. What drastic thing will he do when we tell him the child is dead? When David saw him whispering, by the way, don't do that, okay? I've told my kids, if I'm in the hospital, don't stand around whispering about me. I want to know what's going on. Amen? There, said that. When David saw them whispering, he realized what had happened. Is the child dead? King David asked. Yes, they replied, he is dead. And then David got up from the ground, washed himself, put on lotions. I think the King James Version would have said he anointed himself, and changed his clothes. And he went to the tabernacle and worshiped the Lord. After that, he returned to the palace, and we served food and ate. His advisors were amazed. We don't understand you, they told the king. While the child was still living, you wept and refused to eat, but now that the child is dead, you have stopped your mourning and eating again. David replied, I fasted and wept while the child was alive, for I said, perhaps the Lord will be gracious to me and let the child live. But why should I fast when he is dead? Can I bring him back again? I will go to him one day, but he cannot return to me. And then David comforted Bathsheba, his wife, and slept with her. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son, and David named him Solomon. David doesn't let the loss, the death of his child, destroy him or define him, but through surrender, he allows this loss that he experienced to develop him. Here's what we learned from David's loss. This is what we're going to learn to help us get through what we're going through. This is the path of peace through surrender. First of all, like David, we must come to a place of acceptance. We must accept what we cannot change. That's the first step. Look at verse 22 and 23 again. David said to his palace help, he said, I fasted and wept while the child was alive, for I said, perhaps the Lord will be gracious to me and let the child live, but why should I fast when he is dead? Can I bring him back again? You see, he was coming to this place where he said, I can't do anything about this. God has done what he's going to do. Can I bring him back again? The answer is no. He couldn't bring his son back. But as he comes to this place of acceptance, he makes this statement of resolve, and I love it. It's one of the greatest passages in the Old Testament. He said, he can't come back, but I will go to him. I will go to him one day. But he accepted it. He said, but he cannot return to me. Now let me be clear. Acceptance doesn't mean that you stop caring or that you stop hurting. Acceptance simply means you understand that there's nothing that you can do to change what has happened. Accept what you cannot change. And second, we learn from David in this path of surrender, and this may seem odd to you, but you got to take care of yourself. In all of this, you've got to take care of yourself. Verse 20. And I like this from the Message. It's paraphrased this way. David got up from the floor, washed his face, combed his hair, put on a fresh change of clothes, and then went into the sanctuary and worshiped. I'll come back to this at the next point. And then he came back to the palace, came back home, and he asked for something to eat. and his servant set before him a meal, and he ate. Now, why is this important? Why was it important that David washed his face, combed his hair, put on clean clothes, and got something to eat? Well, if you've suffered loss, you know this to be true. If you've suffered an incredible setback, if you've gone through something major in your life, you don't care what you look like. You'll wear those old sweatpants until you start smelling yourself. You don't care what you look like. You don't care what you smell like. Food really has no place in your life, and you could take it or you could leave it. But this very act of cleaning himself up and putting on some fresh clothes and getting something to eat, it shows that David was willing to live in this tension between lamenting and living. Again, we can grieve and we can live at the same time. It's possible. Step number 3, the path to surrender. And I'm going to hurry now. Step 3, the path to surrender requires us to refocus on God through worship. The temptation in our loss and in our grief is to turn away from God. Remember Jacob, he was a runner. He ran. So you heard me make the statement, God was okay with Jacob wrestling with him because it meant that he hadn't turned his back on God. He was willing to engage with God. And the same thing happened with David. In his loss, David didn't turn away from God. Instead, he turned to God. And the second part of verse 20 says that he went to the tabernacle. And what did he do there? He worshiped the Lord. I love this verse in Psalm. I hope this is in your outline. Psalm 73. When I tried to understand this, it was too difficult for me until what? I entered the sanctuary of God, and then I understood. That's right. I hope that's what happens to you in worship, that you get, all of a sudden you begin to get an eternal perspective to whatever it is you're going through right now. Here's the final step in the path of surrender. Focus on what's left, not on what's lost. Focus on what's left and not on what's lost. You see, when you focus on your loss, you box yourself in. You build a wall so high that you can't see what's still all around you. And so I say to you, surrender. It's the path of peace. Surrender your pain, surrender your hurt, surrender your fears, surrender your problems. Surrender everything you're going through. Some of you need to pray today, and in a moment here in the sanctuary and there in the fireside room, I'm going to give us all an opportunity to pray and to respond to this message. But you need to surrender and say, Lord, I'm wounded. What I'm going through right now has hurt me deeply. I'm wounded, but as I surrender this to you, I'm going to start walking again.